Computer. Okay. Hi, Jen and I are here to have more interviews for the celebration of our 40th anniversary with Quincy Choral Society. Jen was the 7th president of QCS. I was the 6th president, so we got to work together and serve together. So we just kind of thought we'd spend some time this afternoon reminiscing about some of the really fun times we had, maybe some of the struggles or less than fun times we had, and just kind of chat about what it was like to be president of QCS. So Jen, what do you what do you remember about your time as the president?
Well, I think my time was marked by a lot of change. I had been on the board for a few years at that point. I'd started off as corresponding secretary. I had actually been recruited by then President Stephanie Mon to join the board and ended up taking that position. And then you invited me to be your vice president when you became president in 2013. And so I served in that position for the first year. And so it was good to have that kind of the background and, really to know how things worked. But then, I got to, I think it was June of 2015 when I became president, and I was emailing with Sacred Heart Church in North Quincy about, booking the next season's concerts and introducing myself as the new president. And the person I was booking with, Howard, emailed, and he's like, well, we're about to announce a new mass schedule, and there's going to be a mass at 6 p.m. on Sundays. And I was like, oh no. And so I immediately emailed John Nichols, and I was like, I'm trying to do what I'm supposed to do, and I can't do it. And they're not going to let me book the concert. And so, it was that summer we just spent, I think talking with the board, and then, John and I talking with different organizations in Quincy, just trying to figure out where we were going to go. And we were fortunate in that we were eventually able to convince Quincy Public Schools to work with us. I think they had a lot of programming to consider as well, but we were able to find a date or dates that worked with them. And we ended up moving to Central Middle School for that December's concert, as well as the May concert. And it worked out really well, but it was definitely a nail biter for a while, just getting started as president, and then, oh, wow, okay, we need to find a new venue so that we can perform and do what we need to do. So that's my memory of jumping into the role.
I do remember thinking, wow, my timing was on my side for the first time in a long time. It's like, here, Jen, good luck. And it was exciting having somebody fairly new, because I had been around for a long time. I'd been on and off the board many times as needed. And Steph recruited me to be her vice president. And I remember telling her, okay, let me do this for a year or two until you find somebody who might really want to do it. Because I never really had any, visions or aspirations of being the president. And then I think my presidency was marked certainly by Steph's departure. I think that was so unexpected. And I viewed my role as, okay, in this really hard time when we lost our president so quickly to such a devastating disease, how do we hold it all together? How do we come back and kind of get through this together? And so I felt very fortunate that I was able to kind of serve in that capacity, just sort of a healing and, let's all come together. So I think it was great that I had the experience of knowing people, and yet we had a board that was filled with new young people who also knew Steph. And so when I look back on my presidency, I think the thing I value the most, or that was the most important that came out of it for me, were the friendships. And Steph did that. When I joined the board, she was not working at the time. She had taken a leave, and Joyce was retired, and she and Gingy, and Steph, Joyce, and Gingy all loved to play games. And so they played games all the time, and I had a really flexible schedule, so I got to join their game group. And those friendships were just, they're invaluable to me. And then you and Bridget were, kind of came on board, and Martha Timke and PJ, and I remember going to AmVets and listening to the bands. And I think, then when, It's Raining Men came along, suddenly it wasn't just, oh, we're president of QCS or QCS. We really were family. And suddenly that, song we've been singing all those years, it's like, wow, that's kind of true. So that's what I remember of kind of the good stuff.
Oh yeah.
About it.
For sure. No, and I think you were the perfect person to handle that transition, because you were already, even though you hadn't been president yet, like you had already been kind of like the face of QCS through, like all the auction work you did and everything with the March concert in particular, and being our MC for all the cabarets. And so I think, it was good to have the comforting and the familiar, to be with us in that, really difficult and sad time.
Thanks. It kind of helped. It's funny, when I thought about what did I really like doing, it's really sad that one of the first things I wrote down was the announcements.
Yeah.
It's like, those were always so much fun,
Yeah. Yeah, I had fun with that too. I liked the opportunity to jump onto that box like platform that John used, because it made me feel tall, because at 5'3", I don't often feel very tall. So, I would just I'd jump up there and have my notebook with all my announcements, and like everyone would be sitting below, and I was like, ooh, I like this. This is nice. Hi.
And sometimes you tap dance for us, which everybody loved.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Me jumping up on a platform or tap dancing, not something anybody wanted to see. So it was.
That's not true. We could have done a duet. It was a lost opportunity, Vicki.
We probably did. Well, maybe in the future when the groups come together, we could do something.
Yes. We'll have to call up Kathy Reddy and see if she'll come and dance.
That's right. Yeah, we'll do a big. Yeah, when we all come back together, we can do a big reunion concert of alums and come back.
Yes.
Find
a venue. That'll be the trick.
Oops, I'm sorry. This dog never, ever, ever comes when I'm on a Zoom call. But of course, today when I'm trying to record something, he can't get out of the way. Maybe Rory will show up.
I know. I don't know where she is, but if she does, I will bring her up. She remembers QCS.
Oh yeah. Actually, Zeke went to some rehearsals. He probably followed John's directing better than most of the people in the group when he was there. One of the things I didn't like, I have to remember, I was surprised by how much work behind the scenes it really was. Mm-hmm. And everything from making sure that the doors are open and closed for every rehearsal, like you said, arranging not just for, one concert and the concert performance, but all of the rehearsals and, the risers and the setup and the tear down and, all of those things. I think that's what people don't know about the role.
Oh yeah, no, it does. It takes a lot of organization and a lot of communication with lots of different people. And, especially when it's like you're coming into somebody else's space, they're like, well, I've got all these other important things to do. I'm going to wait to get back to you. Or, it's, you know where you are on the totem pole, so to speak. So it's not always very high. That was something I was reviewing some of my correspondence with Quincy Public Schools. And, I think I had been emailing to John being like, I'm not hearing back from them. Like, I'm trying to get a contract out of them. And it's like, you realize that, when you're the nonprofit organization, you're at the whim of the other groups that you're trying to work with, and, the ones that you need to work with in order to do what you're doing. So.
Well, and I was always impressed because I was one of the first people, I think Steph and I were the first two people who were president who weren't also working traditional full-time jobs. And so I was always amazed that people were able to do that and still work like 9 to 5, because it was often, I was spending so much time during the week, during the day, or trying to get things done, like you said, trying to follow up with people. I often felt like I was teaching another class, because it was amazing how many emails and phone calls you would get from members saying, well, what about, well, when is? I say, well, did you read the schedule? Have you checked? Did you? And it's like, I feel like, hello. So I often feel like, how did somebody who was working full time manage to do that? That was just, so that always impressed me.
It was a challenge. I think for me, the challenge was, trying to get to rehearsals early in order to be able to talk to people and stuff, because, I worked in downtown Boston, and I think yeah, by the time I was president, I was living in West Roxbury. So I would, take like 45 minutes or so via public transit to get home to my apartment. And then, if I had something, if I had time to have a bite to eat, I did, but sometimes not always. And then, jump in my car and drive over to Milton, which would be, 20, 25 minutes and everything, and that's without traffic. So, yeah, so that was definitely a challenge. And, sometimes like the later nights after having worked all day and then the commute and then getting there and whatever, it was tiring. But I liked it because for me, it was so different than my day job that it really challenged me in new and exciting ways. And, often, when I felt discouraged by, whatever was going on in my full-time job, like QCS always gave me that bump, because at least at QCS, I felt like every time I walked in and I had something to say, people were listening and were happy to see me. So I was like, this is nice, because it wasn't always true at my job. So
Well, I don't know. There were probably more nights when I just wanted to go home, because I'd be out or doing things, and the same things like, or if I wasn't home, it's like, I'm not going out. And yet most of the time, 90% of the time, by the time you left rehearsal, you felt better.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's the magic of, that's the magic of singing. That's the magic of just the whole choral experience. But it is just getting together with people who want to be there and, enjoy seeing you. I agree. I think that was one of the benefits.
Yeah.
Of course, now you had, like, I think we've joked, I think I had the easiest, well, certainly in terms of organizational activity, I had one of the easier presidencies. It was fairly short. I was in for, I finished up Steph's term and then did one year. So I only did it for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, oh, good, here's Jen. She's ready. She wants to do this. But in addition to finding a new space, you had a rather, challenging experience as president that no other president before you had, I don't think.
Yeah,
maybe the very first one.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah, because after we had the venue all set up, and then I thought, oh, phew, my job is done. Now we can smooth sailing from here. Then John Nichols announced his retirement, and I think his last concert was May of 2016, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so then we had to figure out, well, how do we replace him? Like, there wasn't really a procedure in place, and I don't remember seeing like anything in like the bylaws or anything like that, giving us guidance there. And so basically I kind of took it upon myself, and I was like, well, I guess if I'm the president, I have to lead the effort to find his replacement. And so I put together a committee that included board members and non-board members, and tried to have it across the sections. So we had I don't know if I was I might have been the sole soprano representative, but then we had, I think Gordon was the tenor representative, and I know Joyce was an alto representative, and Anne Marie Hayes was also an alto representative. And then, and then we had Dwight Dusnap. He was another, I think he was the bass representative. So we tried to get the whole chorus. And then of course we also included Gingy, because it was crucial. I felt it was very important. And I think everyone felt it was really important that she approve of whoever we hired, since it would be someone she was working with quite closely. And so, it was, once we all got together, and then, I think I created a Gmail, and I found out like different places where we could post, music director openings. And then, then they just kind of started coming in, and, we got a lot of really interesting people. You found out kind of through the process that there's it seems like a very competitive choral conductors program at Boston University, because we got a lot of people that were coming through that program. And so it was very interesting. It was, we definitely felt pressured by time, because, John's last concert was in May, and I think I don't know when he announced, but it was like earlier that semester. It wasn't like we had known for terribly long that this was coming.
Right.
So yeah, we had to put it all together, and luckily this happened pre-COVID, so we were able to, actually
Oh,
have like the QCS come together and meet some of the people who had applied, and do these mock rehearsals to see like who was working best. And so it was, I mean, it was quite the process, but I felt like for me, like kind of personally and professionally, I was glad I went through that because I had never led a search like that
mhm.
before, and I had never had to hire someone of that caliber before. So that was really exciting. And it was just exciting to get to work with some different people in QCS that I didn't know as well. Like I didn't really know Anne Marie and Dwight as
Yeah.
well before that, but it was very great to get to know them. In addition to obviously working with Gordon and Joyce Gingy, who I did know better. And I think it was just a good exercise to see like, what were our goals for the group? Like, what did we
Mhm.
envision as like important for the future of the group? Did we want to find someone who closely mirrored who John Nichols was and what his style was, or did we try to want to go in a different direction? And, I think we ended up going in a different direction with the candidate we chose, Joshua Rhodey, who, I think really he infused something that was new and different, and obviously a lot younger as well, and a
Yeah.
different perspective. So it's, even though he didn't end up staying with the group as long, I think it was a good experience just seeing like another way for it to be done.
Oh, I think a true mark of it is that everybody who was on the search committee is still part of the group.
Hmm.
So often when you have search committees, they work really hard, in other professions or organizations. And then once the new person is on board, lots of times I've seen this happen in churches several times, sometimes in academic environments when they bring in a new leader, the people who chose them leave. Or sometimes the people who kind of took over the leadership roles leave because for whatever reason they don't stick around. And I think that the transition was really smooth. And I think that our membership has stayed pretty consistent. And so I think the transition was probably as seamless as it could have been.
Hmm.
Um, well, and I think the other thing is that as long as Gingy liked Joshua, we were fine. It's kind of like, okay,
Yes.
if Gingy approves, then we're going to, and I think not only did she love him, I mean, who wouldn't love Gingy, but I think Joshua really, really understood Gingy's value to the group.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, she's such a top-notch musician, and she's
oh,
just a wonderful person overall. Yeah, I mean, her vote was most important to me,
yeah,
honestly. I wanted to
it's
make sure there was someone that she felt like, was the right caliber musician, and someone that she felt like she could work with well.
right. Oh, I totally agree. I think it worked out really well. And we did. And it was a shock. I mean, so much of the group, so many people in Quincy Choral have been with the group forever. you know, 20, 25 years is not unusual for a membership for a lot of us. And to bring in somebody with his youth and excitement and different approach still worked. And I think that's what impressed me about the work of the committee and about bringing in John too. Because it's tough to replace somebody who's been there for so many years.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, he had huge shoes to fill for sure.
he
And
did.
socks.
Yeah, he sucks. Yeah. Yes, John sucks. Oh my gosh. Who could forget those? Oh,
Yeah.
forget those. Oh,
But well, and I think that's also why it was important to all of us on the committee to have buy-in from QCS, because we didn't want there to be a mass exodus, if
mhm.
people didn't like the person we chose. And so that's why it was great that we were able to do this, like, shortly, I think it was shortly after the May concert. So it was early summer, probably before people would take off in their own directions, and having those like mock rehearsals so people could actually see and then vote. Like, I remember collecting all of the ballots and, to
Yeah,
see what people thought. I think that was key because they felt invested in the process, and they felt like they had been heard. I hope.
I think so.
I think.
No, I think you didn't hear much rumbling.
Right.
You really didn't. And you're going to hear some. And there were a few, I don't know, divas who felt that perhaps they weren't as respected as divas.
Mm.
Uh, during the transition, but that's, some of them left and some of them have stayed. And so I think, again, everybody has to do what's right for them and move on or stay or readjust. So I think, and the fact that we're in a pandemic right now and we're still seeing, 40 people show up for a virtual rehearsal. I think that's pretty impressive that I think people are committed to QCS and to each other. It's not a group where people just sing.
Of course, yeah.
We don't just show up on Monday nights and sing and go home like a lot of choruses. I think it is a commitment to the group and to each other.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, it definitely, there is that family feel. And, I was so, I always felt it when I was in the group, but I just was so overwhelmed by it. I remember that my last concert with QCS before I moved down to the DC area. And, I think it was at the end of the concert, it might've even been you that handed me an envelope. And you had all collected many generous donations to help me with my move. And I wasn't surprised. I guess I wasn't surprised because I knew what great people we had in the group, but it was so humbling and so, I guess, emotionally overwhelming. It was just, to realize that like we had that impact on each other in the, I think it was 7 years when I was an active member. So yeah, it was, that definitely stayed with me. And, I'd say, speaking of COVID, one of the nice things about this current situation is that like I've been able to reconnect with you and, many other of our board members and non-board members from QCS virtually and, get together on a regular basis. So.
And I think that's, ever since I've been part of the group, they have been so committed to helping each other. If there are members, throughout the 25, closing in on 30 years, I guess, that I've been part of the group, if there's somebody who's in trouble, we've had people who have had financial problems. We've had so many people with health problems. We've had people with, daycare, tax problems. And if somebody has either the resources or the knowledge, they jump in. They'll call them and say, hey, how can I help? Or what can I do? And I think that's really impressed me. I don't know, it's sad. I don't know how many memorial services and funerals, we perform at those,
Yep.
At christenings, at graduation, how many graduation parties and, recitals and things have we held or had? So I think that has definitely been the strength. And your family is even part of it. You either coerced or convinced or somehow persuaded your father to, so it really is a family thing for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was trying to get him for a while. It took me a while, but I was glad I was able to hook him in. And that became like, we had our own routine for QCS rehearsals. So he would drive over to my apartment in West Roxbury, even though it would have been way more convenient for him just to drive himself to rehearsal, but he would drive to my apartment in West Roxbury every Monday night. And then we would drive together to Milton and then, back to my apartment. And then he would drive home from there.
Oh, how cool.
Every week.
I never knew that.
Yep.
That's so cool. No, he is. I think and then and like you said, then we got to know your mom and your sisters and everybody, just so it is that way. There are those family units. We have some other mother, daughter, certainly spouse, partners kind of thing. So, and I think that's what makes it work. That's what makes the group work.
Oh yeah. And Fowler House.
Yes, exactly.
Fowler House.
And it's sad because we used to go to the Chinese restaurant after the March concert and they closed. So they changed hands. They did that way before COVID. So after the auction, we've had to go. We had to go back to Fowler House for that too.
Oh well.
Yeah, the hardships we endure. The hardship. Yeah. Oh, well. Is there anything else you remember or want to say about your stint as president of Quincy Choral Society?
Yeah, even though it was a short time in the relative scheme of things, I think it was a great learning experience for me. And I think it was a great confidence booster for me. I think being able to take charge of a group that size
Yeah.
and of, I mean, honestly, 99% of the group members were older than me as well.
Yeah.
And so,
Exactly.
so being able to do that and, I think earn their respect and their trust,
Yeah.
really meant a lot to me. And I think it really helped propel me to have confidence to do other things, like move to Washington, D.C. and
Yeah.
start a new job and just try something completely different. And, and then finding like a new group down here to sing with so that, I still had that musical part of my life active that is so important to me. So,
Uh-huh.
I think I can credit being president of QCS with just, just enhancing my sense of self and, feeling like that I could make a positive impact on a group and, do something worthwhile. So, I will always appreciate that.
And it's funny because we did not rehearse this at all, but one of the things I love as having been a teacher, professor my entire life is that education and mentoring process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so critical in everything we do, to try and make sure there are always people who are there to share the load and to just be there to take over. And I think that's wonderful. And I get really excited when I look at like you and I look at Cindy and some of the people who came on board, who've come on board in the past few years, who didn't have as much leadership in the same way or hadn't done the same kind of thing. And that's what this group also does, is that I think you're right. They not only support and try and train, but they're there and they're going to make people succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really glad to hear that, because you did just not only step into a role where you were, I would say 100% of the people were older than you.
Well, no, I was a few months older than Bridget and Judy. So.
Oh, okay. That's, I'm like 99%. I would have guessed everybody. But to seriously step into that role, and then to have so many changes, to have so much, everything just turned on its head. And then to say, okay, bye, I've kept you here. I've gotten you here. I have you, you have your new director. I'm leaving now, bye. I mean, it really was. That was such a tumultuous time for you. But
Mm-hmm.
You made sure that everything was in line, so the group stayed together really well too. So yeah.
Yes. And hopefully Cindy has forgiven me, because I know that she was making me promise that I would stay president for a while. And as far as I knew, I was going to. So I had promised, but then, opportunity knocked and I couldn't say no. So sorry, Cindy.
Well, yeah, well, she's been through it now too. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
That's true. Well, cool. This was fun.
Yeah, this is good.
I look forward to perhaps some future activities with former Quincy Choral Society members in their new chorus areas. That's the other thing that's cool, is that we keep, how many people go to Florida and visit, like Martha and PJ and Fred and Artie, and how many people, go up to see John and Jody. And I mean, I think as people move around, QCS members kind of follow them too. So maybe we'll get down to your neck of the woods.
Oh, for sure. The world is small. Once COVID's over, we will all be together and hopefully sing together again.
Amen. Yeah. Well, this was fun. Thanks so much, Jen. And keep singing.
You too. Thanks, Vicki.